You see, the same way we have the conversations about like our court cases, like you know everything basically, Anthony. So just flow in that same way, especially because of the fact that forget about the cameras. Imagine just the same way you used to give me. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna get to it, but first, let me introduce the show. I love this so much. I don't think you guys even know it. Welcome so much to this Blended podcast. And welcome to the Blended Family podcast. My name is Claire Karatu.
And my name is Anthony Mbogwa.
I had to introduce our guest first because let me tell you, the history we have with Mr. Anthony Mbogwa, my partner and I, is just, I don't even know. Not only has he heard every single sob story there is to hear about my life, he also managed to see our case through to the end. Anthony has been our lawyer, he's been our friend, he's been our counselor, he's been our taking all our emotions person. Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing well, Claire. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Oh yeah, it's been a while. I think we have not interacted so much after our case ended.
Thank you,
but
Jesus.
we're still ongoing, we're still ongoing.
Yeah.
And we are hoping for the best moving forward.
Right. So let me just mention the fact that before Anthony, there was a lovely lady called Elizabeth Kitololo who was handling our case. I don't want to do her disservice because of the fact that she was also with us from the beginning, and then Anthony sort of just like took over the case. And Anthony, I guess the reason I'm asking you how you are is because it's a lot.
Oh yeah. Extremely.
It is
a lot. It's a lot. And I think we took over when things were quite not very stable.
Yeah.
But I'm glad when we picked up and after having a couple of conversations with you and your partner.
Yeah.
And your parents too.
Yes.
We sort of came up with something to work with.
Yeah.
And we are glad that so many factors came into play to your advantage.
Yeah. Let me tell you, so if you're just joining us on this podcast, what we do or what we've done so far is we've talked about the journey towards becoming a blended family. So I did give a short, description of my journey from questions that I did answer. So in case you've missed that episode, please just go and watch it so that you can be able to catch up with just where we're at. And of course, we've had the wonderful interview when it comes to realizing that you're divorced or that you're separating. And we did have an interview with a mom and a daughter. That's Lydia KM's mom and Lydia KM. And now, of course, today I'm just going to introduce the topic, okay? Because, hey, we've got Anthony in the building today. Anthony,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So the topic of today is the separation and divorce process. I think I had told you that that's what we're going to talk about because that's basically what you walked with us through, right? But what it also comes up with, because I know there's the custody issues when it comes to dealing with families that have children. So the reason I was first asking you if you're okay is because of the roles that you need to play when it comes to dealing with a matter. Anthony, are you okay?
Oh yeah. There's so many. Okay. You have to... and it comes second to nature because you have to wear about 3 or 4 caps.
Yeah.
The first caps, of course, it's from the client perspective. A client has just walked into your chambers and said that this is the issue I'm facing.
Yeah.
But along the way, as the conversation progresses, you find that you're leaning towards advisory.
Okay.
Just offering general legal advisory. Beyond that is beyond representation. It's not mechanical. Because of the sensitive nature of these cases, it's easy to be a mechanical relationship. You really want to get into the shoes of your clients to see things from where they are standing from. So it goes now even friendly advice, sometimes friendly pieces of advice.
Right.
Thirdly, you become a therapist. I have become a therapist through
by
this
default.
Profession by default, and you don't realize because you sort of you're becoming somebody that this person needs to look up to, sometimes to lean on. You help them talk about some things, because when somebody walks into your room, like, when we started having this conversation, we were dealing with you from a client perspective. It was not there was no gelling along that way.
Yeah.
But as we progress and we, prompt you to open up, we start now seeing the struggles, and we cannot be blind to that. The struggles that you're going through.
Yeah.
And now fourth, and sometimes this is so I can call it to be so it's confusing, because if somebody is going through a separation, then they are looking for the husband. If you're offering advice, then they start seeing you as if you're the husband that they never got, or you're the wife. If at all somebody's talking to an advocate who is female, they start looking at them from as if it's the wife that they never, because this wife is offering them comfort, this wife is offering them representation, and this wife is just walking with them along this journey. So sometimes you're being, you're a husband at home, but then you become a husband to this other client. And sometimes we've seen some controversial, pictures being taken of when you have to hold that person's hand, like quite literally, because of what they're actually dealing with. So you wear so many caps, I must say, and legal advice being the least. In fact, it goes beyond just normal representation. So that's the position sometimes we find ourselves in.
Let me tell you, like you just talking about it, I don't think that some people understand just how difficult that process is, in terms of for the client and for the lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
So the divorce process and the custody battles, because those are two separate courts, isn't it? So please guide me on some of the steps that you take from divorce to now custody matters.
Yeah, so what most people don't understand is that they think that once the decision to separate, sometimes it can be a mutual separation. And that's why we had our law amended to just say, sometimes we have some of these irreconcilable differences.
Right.
And our law just had to come to that maybe the love has just ended and parties are at a point of no return.
Right.
And they just have to go their separate ways. Previously, we used to have very concrete grounds that you must come with before the court could actually permit that.
Right.
But given the developing nature of law, we have that particular ground. So when people have come to a point of no return and they made that decision, maybe one couple has made that decision, maybe the other couple is still feeling that there's something to be salvaged. So the separation process and by extension the divorce process, because again those are two different things. You may go for judicial separation, whereby you're just staying apart from each other, still married, but you've just petitioned for a court to just stay apart, maybe work some things out when the two of you are not together. But then eventually, if you're not able to come back together, then we can petition for the divorce process. So that in itself triggers a whole other ball game of, if the two of you had invested together, there's a whole question of division of matrimonial property, which is taken from a divorce court to now the matrimonial court. And then now, if there are kids who are involved, they are taken now, their agenda is taken to the children's court.
Right.
So you find a client juggling between three courts at the same time. And it's really not fair, because you're moving from one court and going to another. I mean, everybody would expect this system to be so synchronized such that one judge would be able to, or a magistrate will be able to handle all this. But the trigger, the ripple effect of that particular decision that we have to separate or live together or live apart, it triggers all those. So it is, one, resource-wise, it is emotionally draining. It is draining in terms of resources, because you have to retain representation in the divorce court, in the matrimonial court, and in the children's court.
Right.
So your resources are quite depleted. And you find that most times the client are not really able to keep up with that. So you find somebody giving up on some of the crucial things they would have actually pursued, whether it is custody or whether it is matrimonial property that you had invested together, because they really don't have the the financial might to actually push for that. Again, emotion-wise, it's also draining because today you're in court for
oh my gosh,
today in court for your children's case, and yours was the children's case. We were not pursuing these others.
Yes.
I have clients who are pursuing all three at the same time. So even you're looking at that person, they are no longer the same. And you still have to maintain your professional life outside. You still have to maintain all this and still be sane. So it really calls for a lot of so the beginning or rather the start of it is usually the divorce. If you have to, because or if you separate, then we if you just separate, then we can have the children matter now come secondary. But a division of matrimonial property cannot be granted before the divorce decree is actually issued. So that can wait. Parties can decide, you know what, for the sake of the children, let this remain in our joint names as long as there's a proper agreement and structure that they'll not be disposed. Or if they can be transferred to maybe a company where they're directors, and or if they are taken to a trust for the sake of the kids, rather than just have them divided and I take my share, you take your share, and then we sell our properties. So sometimes that usually awaits. But for, when people cannot stand each other in one house, then of course somebody has to take the heat, and sometimes it's the children.
Do you know, and that's very unfortunate, but we will go back on that, the beginning stages. Because when I look back at our experience, it was so bad at the beginning.
You keep
nobody wants to hear the other person, nobody wants to work with the other person, nobody wants to understand the other person. But as you go, and I guess this is something that I do appreciate you for, and the magistrate who was seeing us is that the best interest of the kids is what matters. So then when you start thinking that way, then it changes how you're dealing with, even if it's not a difficult person or a difficult person. In my case, you know my case. You know my case. But what would you say, especially because I told you I want us to have these really real conversations. It's so difficult when you're in that moment. It's so difficult, Anthony, when I'm coming to you and I'm saying, oh, Baba Dani anafanya hivi na anafanya hivi na anafanya hivi, right? And right now, I need change so that I can be able to raise my children in a specific way. So in those moments, somebody who's going through it right now, what are some of the coping mechanisms that you can be able to tell them? Because Anthony, I didn't have any coping mechanisms. Remember how draining it was? There are times I would meet with Anthony, and when he leaves, he's also just as drained as I am, because I would also drain your energy because of just how heavy everything was. And the next time we'd meet, he's like, you're better now. I'm like, I am. But I just remember just how bad it was.
Let me begin from, you've mentioned something and about the best interest of the children. People normally take, and it's not fast, and it's and they think that it is the easier route to take, that I will take you to court. I will take you to court. And in this particular instance, you were taken to court. It was not your wish to be there. So when you found yourself there and you're asking yourself, what are we doing here? People normally think that taking somebody to court is a punishment. It's a pound of flesh that they want from you because they are angry at you for the separation. So they think that they can use the children as a weapon or a tool to punish. So when a majority of the times when people are fighting for the custody battles, it's usually about themselves and it has nothing to do with the children.
I agree with that, Anthony, but sometimes, I'm sorry I've cut you short, but sometimes I feel like it's been necessary for some people that I know to go to court because now you want to take the kids, but you're not assisting in any way. There's the communication is not good. So they've been forced to have to go to court, right? So in that case, then you can say that
it is necessary.
It's necessary.
There are people, of course, they are very, very merited situations. Whereby people have they have tried the reconciliation. They have tried to hold meaningful conversations. They have tried to be cordial about it. They have tried to be candid about it. Let's work this together because taking this to the court, it's not the best of solutions. And we are trying to remedy a social situation, and this is something that people need to understand, that it is not always, the courts don't always have answers. And unfortunately, sometimes people want the courts to help them parent.
Right.
Okay, so that role is again abdicated. In the similar way that we see people take children to school and leave the responsibility to the teachers to do everything for them.
Right.
And they just want the kids to stay there. Sometimes they want the court to actually help in terms of even micromanaging the whole relationship. Yeah, micromanaging the home, which is broken. So some of the our court we normally look at, we are not looking at you as a person and what you need as a person. We are looking at what is best for this particular child.
Yeah.
Let me break it down by saying, at times you may find that the father was the sole breadwinner of this house, and the mother was what we call, I don't use the word stay at home, but let me use it loosely. She was taking care of the children while at home.
Right.
So this guy, being the one that he is providing, and he was able to put up the kids in quite a well-to-do school. When there is that separation, then everybody is saying, you know what, now you play your role, I play my role. This person may not have the financial means.
Right.
So at that particular point in time, we are looking at, do we adjust our situation to suit the children, not to punish you? Because some of them will be saying, let me have custody of the children because I know I can educate them. Let me have custody of the children because I can provide for them.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're also forgetting that there are equal rights also to the mother to have access, have a say in terms of the school that the children have to go to. So your situation was very unique.
Thank you.
Without dwelling into that. But you mentioned something to do with the helping to cope with the emotional.
Right.
And you had a very supportive partner. You still have. And your parents. And I really applaud and I give, oh my God, this all I have to give it to your mom. There is a day, I remember there's a day we had the mediation session and the magistrate was, and your mom rushed to court, just to come to see, we have to be there to support her because they are looking at your situation.
She did miss any court mention case unless she had other things to do.
Remember,
but it was very difficult for her to miss.
Even in the initial stages, I remember all of them, they used to log in because of the online. They used to listen in. The whole family used to listen in. And, Claire, just look at it as somebody who is walking this journey alone.
Yeah, it's
They don't have somebody to. And I remember at the beginning stages, you guys were all there, and by the time we were coming to an end, I remember breaking some giving some updates, and you're like, oh, that's what happened.
Yes.
Oh, that's what happened. And at the time, I appreciated because of the trust that you had, because initially you guys were, what will the court
actually,
say?
let's just tell them what that is. So we used to log into every single case, but just because, and I have to applaud you as well, Anthony, just because of how Anthony handles his communication with us, his communication with the other lawyers, and also just how he handles the case. Let me tell you, if there's a lawyer who makes you feel comfortable, like you don't have to do anything, Mr. Anthony over here. In fact, even just mention your name. What's your name? Please.
Which one?
Anthony, please mention your company, please.
Oh yeah, we practice with J. Mushoki and Company Advocates. We're on Riverside Drive, right opposite Prime Bank. Yes, of course, litigation is my department,
right?
And dispute resolution. And this was not a litigation case. This was a whole case of dispute resolution.
Yeah, it was.
And we were trying to fuse in the different modes of mediation, and of course a bit of litigation here and there, just to try and get the best of outcomes from that particular case.
Yeah.
So yes, you had a very good support mechanism. And I even remember when we went into the first, and the court actually even, and I'm saying that we were sort of lucky to have to fall before a magistrate who is also a trained child psychologist.
A psychologist, and she was big on mental health for the kids as well.
And she was big on mental health.
Yeah.
So her driving the case towards that area of, can we have conversations? Let me come from my seat up there. Let me, let's sit down here, because the issues that we seem to be having to, we keep on mark timing around one or two issues, and maybe let me have an icebreaker in this conversation. So that also helped.
Yes,
and it can really help in so many parents. If at all, I would say if judicial officers also would look at these cases from that perspective of, I'm not just it's just by the stroke of the pen
Right.
that I have to make orders. Let me also assist the parties to also come to a level of agreement.
Right.
I don't know whether that worked, but I really also applaud her for actually stepping into that role.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
So, and then therapy, therapy because of what you've mentioned, the mental health. And in this case, in fact, the court was concerned about, do the children understand this process? Because when you started off, did you involve them? And that's a conversation that people need to have from the get-go. Did you involve these kids to understand the implications of why you are writing these agreements, why we have to separate? So so they come to this, so they start seeing things happening in the house that, guys, today you have to be with your dad, or guys, today, it was a whole, it's a whole confusing phase.
Yeah.
And since we are looking at custody from a child, and from a child and a children perspective, they have to be involved in this process as well.
Yeah.
And that's what most people miss.
Oh, do you remember how much I didn't want them to be involved? Oh my goodness. So when we started the process, and I'm just going to touch on just the effects that these court proceeding divorce cases take and the toll that they take on our kids, not just us, but on our kids as well, and just the best way to go about it. But I just want to touch on how much I denied. So we've been in court for some time. So when we started off, the kids were quite young.
2017.
Therefore, one is in diapers, there's no way
you can
I'm having
them
that conversation with them as to why, their father is taking them, or why they're not seeing their father, And so with that, I guess somebody who's going through it right now, because we have been having conversations with some people who, with a lot of people who are going through the court process.
Yes.
What advice would you give them in terms of taking care of their children, other than putting their mental health first? Because, it is quite selfish.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give you an example.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I've gone round in circles, but I'll give you an example. I used to get so upset about nappy burns.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Nappy burns that would tend to happen a lot more when they were on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
You really can't do anything about that.
it. Yes.
You can only complain and complain and complain and complain and complain in court. So what advice would you give, I guess, somebody who is going through that custody case right now? There's the access that is granted, because in some cases access hasn't been granted yet, so they're trying to negotiate and decide, especially if the other person is not as good as when it comes to as good as a parent. So I know I've asked a lot of questions, but Anthony, you're with me. You're with me. Yeah, you're with me.
We'll just try and break it down. Not necessarily pieces of advice, but sometimes what we hear, what our judicial officers recommend. And I remember during the last session.
And Anthony, feel free to ask questions. I remember you also wanted to ask me some, how did we get?
Yes, we will get to there.
Get to there. What are some of the things that lawyers want to know?
We will get to there. We will get to there. Right. And I think there's a time we left session and the court was, concerned about, why is a person not doing what would, what is normal, what would become, what is natural. Naturally, you're supposed to be doing this. Yeah. So the word to use there was, can you style up? Yeah, can you just style up? And the use of it may seem harsh and it may seem even subjective. Right. But don't forget that even some of these judicial officers, they are people as well. They are parents as well. And they are wondering, why is somebody not actually doing this? So we have to summon that part of you just to say, okay, fine. Emotions aside, anger aside, me being, you have to come from the high horse that you're riding on to come down and say, hey, if I want custody and maybe these children need custody and I have to stay with them, but I'm not the best of parents. I'm not the best of parents when it comes to this.
Actually, please tell me a case that's ever happened. Please, I'll wait.
I am not the best of parents.
I'll wait.
Unfortunately, it's not been there.
It's not been there.
And of course, when we are dealing, a majority of these cases, before the children can start, saying their wishes, most of the times you're looking at children of tender years.
Exactly.
And, our act, and that's the principal act, the Children's Act, defines children of tender years to be below 10 years of age. So how are you, and ordinarily, unless the extreme circumstances, like the mother is not well mentally, or she's, she has bouts of insanity, or, they are supposed to have the custody of
and
the children.
actual ones, because I feel like they use that as armor to try and make, or rather they try to make this other person not fit. So make sure that it's actual incapability of being a parent. Because
so no, there are some weaknesses when it comes to that. But so there's a presumption that the mother is actually taking the best in, he has the best interest of the children. So some of these access, and not to say that dads are not the best. I know there's a case in Nakuru whereby the judge, ordered that the child of tender years to be with the dad, the judge, and it was on appeal where the magistrate had said, what, even if the dad is out there, breadwinning, he cannot take care of house business. We know we have some very good dads. I mean, there are dads who start this process at a very tender age. Maybe something unfortunate happens, like the mom passes away during delivery, and the dad actually steps into that role of the dad and the mom. So we have some very good guys who do that. But the ideal scenario is that the mom will be taken care of. So when it comes now to your getting upset over those issues, and now you want that issue, you're actually putting it in affidavits and in court papers that this person is not fit to be a child and to be a dad or a parent because they cannot even change the diapers or something like that. Is that really something do you want the court to adjudicate on that?
No.
I mean, it's a question of if you know that you are not fit for this role, ask for help. And again, you also want to balance the skills of justice here to be seen to be fair to both sides. That's why ordinarily we'll have access for the fathers. Mostly it will come during weekends, maybe from Friday evening and then till Sunday evening. There they can at least try and wiggle. But even again, don't take something that you cannot, don't bite something that you really cannot chew, so that it comes to, mess up your situation, because you'll have them over the weekend, you'll leave them to a nanny who is a stranger, and then it will not be. So in those scenarios, whenever we're having conversations with clients, we just say, if you really don't ask me to get for you access orders, if the situation at home is not the best. Visitation, yes, let's have visitation rights, especially for these very young children who first don't understand their emotional, what they're going through emotionally, and who also don't have to contend with that at that age. Let's have what I would call sane or sane discussions, or even let's go for something in court that is even sane. Let's make sane propositions.
Do you know, like Anthony, I really do appreciate the fact that you're able to sit here and say, let's have sane conversations. Because you, of all people, would be very aware of just how difficult it is to actually have sane, not in all cases, obviously. There's those people who are able to sit down and, be able to be, what is it called? Mediated. And they come to a conclusion. But then there's some cases where it is extremely difficult
to actually even crack somebody's position, and somebody just takes a hard stance and a hard position, and you can see it is really not helping the children. It is not about you, but the children. Remember, as you're going through the custody battle, it's all about the kids. You're supposed to be helping yourself through another. So for the sake of you remaining sane in this conversation, you go and do therapy, go and open up to your parents, go open up to your friends. And unfortunately, people have different ways of dealing. Remember, there's also the bitterness and the anger of seeing this person that you once were with, again now becoming your nemesis, and we have to, to be in a contest, and somebody has to win. Somebody has to win in this contest. So somebody's also dealing with those. Unfortunately, this is not the arena for dealing with those. Let's find out if these kids are schooling. Are these kids eating? Are these kids being fed? Are they dressed well? Are they exposed to the social amenities that maybe they used to get exposed to when they were with you together? So this is not the arena for that. So it is not really a contest for the disputing parents. You have different forums. you can take it to the divorce court, whereby you can pursue reconciliation if at all you see that can happen. But if it's not, let's not bring all these issues to this particular forum, just for the sake of the kids. I mean, resentment always gets old, and that has usually always been my go-to line.
Yeah, resentment
and I remember
gets old.
I kept on telling you that maybe let's give it some 3 more months. Maybe
let's give it time.
Let's give it time. Because when you're starting this, the emotions are high up.
Way
There's
high.
a lot of passion to fight and determination.
Oh, yeah.
But as you progress, even you come and realize that the things I was even asking from this person, it's too much for me. So you say, okay, you start now. Releasing the brakes, and you stop, hard pressing on the pedal for some of the things that you're actually going for, because now your life is also moving forward.
Do you know what I realized? Is in those 6 years we were in court, the kids were growing.
They were growing up.
Like now, it's like we were fighting for these children who are now old, who are now able to, to just be able to say what it is that they want and what it is that they don't want. And honestly, I wish that it wasn't the case that we had to go through all that, because then I would have had a lot more time to raise my children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But time goes.
Time goes. And,
fighting.
And the thing that maybe, for instance, if you had what we call the parental responsibility agreements, or the PRAs, the things that you put in that agreement 6 years ago, which you're also fighting over, these children have grown.
Yeah.
If you had indicated that I will, that I will be granted access to the children over the weekend, what if that weekend comes and your daughter, who was, that time your daughter was 4 or 5 years, now your daughter is 11 years, she's a preteen, or she's a teen, who now has to say, I don't want to go to dad's, or I don't want to be with moms. Or even if they go to their dad, they will be like, can I come back home tomorrow? And when you say no, they'll ask you why. Then you say, will you say because there's an agreement that your dad and I have? So those are some of the things that we don't usually foresee. And therefore, it's always good to always remember that it's not permanent. It's not cast in stone, that this agreement. And that's why we always have a clause we put in our agreements that there's always a liberty to apply. We can always come back to a court and say, hey, there have been developments in this case. And therefore, we will... we are adjusting our mode of operation or our mode of raising our kids. We're just notifying the court. And a majority of the times, after people get their wishes, that's the end of the fight. I mean, I am yet to encounter a situation whereby somebody came, with a hot case, and then they served, and the other person just said, you know what, let's just keep quiet. And then the orders they were seeking for, they are granted because everybody is expecting a contest. So when the contest is not granted to them, and I think this is one of the strategies I tell you, like, why don't you just sit down? Because the more we continue engaging, the more we are providing ammunition for, retaliation. You'll always retaliate.
Something.
So there will always be something. You know what?
Yeah.
Why don't you just keep quiet? Let's keep quiet. It will now deflate the energy and the wheels of the way he's running or she is running. So sometimes always, and you find that in those moments of just sitting down and not finding a solution or even finding something to always shoot, we are left now to even think. And now that's the time you had for raising. So instead of me thinking about the weekend is coming and you did not bring the kids over, why don't you think about what would the children be needing, or even bettering yourself? I mean, if somebody was late, we've been in situations whereby a client is calling you at 5 o'clock because the kids were meant to be picked up at 4 and it's 5 o'clock and somebody was supposed to be going somewhere and now I'm late. So how do you want us to enforce such lateness? We're not giving permission for, these heavy rains, these traffic. And at that time, you must put in mind that you're not in the best of communications. Would it have hurt you to just say, hello, it's now getting late. Are you still coming? And the other person will actually see. It's not combat, explain myself and say that I'm not. So it does not always have to be a contest. Sometimes we can be cordial about these situations and the kids don't have to suffer.
I actually just want to ask.
If you remember well, let me just go back to that issue of the PRA. We had, by the time I was coming on the second addendum.
Second. Okay, let me just explain, because I pretty much became a lawyer because of being in court for 6 years. But what is a PRA? Because a lot of people like even my cousins would call me and be like, hey, not all my cousins, a specific cousin would call me and tell me, what does a PRA look like? How is your agreement? How is it actually followed?
Alright.
You know, because sometimes, like you're saying, there's some things that you can't really put in there. So please explain to us what a PRA, is and the addendums that we had, the second one.
Yes, those are legal terms for an agreement. It's a parental responsibility agreement. And sometimes people come up with the responsibility agreements.
Okay.
It's the couple that is sitting down and actually saying that, we're actually separating. I want you to take care of these roles, and the other person will take care of the other roles. This will be my access time with the kids. This will be my and whenever it comes to the holidays, this will be so we actually compute the time. You had actually gone deep into it because yours had a matrix. It had a matrix of percentages of the time.
It really did.
We will come to that so that you can explain how you actually arrived at the time.
Yes.
It was one of the most interesting things I had ever come across. Sometimes it is entered before. That was very genius and very brilliant of you.
It wasn't me, actually. It wasn't even me. It was the
Take the
dad.
credit.
I could never.
Okay.
But go ahead. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So sometimes it's entered into even before. We don't have to take the case to court. Okay, we can just agree. We don't have to have a fight that I have to go to court first. We can agree on it. So the two of the aggrieved parties sit down and come up with it.
Right.
So they will, it will have the parties who will be the children. So if the agreement is between the two of you over the minors, that is the language of the children's court, over the minors, and then now it will talk about anything and everything that you wish to discuss over.
Right.
So that, but we'll be focusing mainly on three things: on the education of the kids, on the terms of their well-being, in terms of healthcare, both healthcare and social,
and access.
and then now the maintenance bit. Okay, we need some money. So are we contributing? A majority of the times you'll find some of the roles pertaining to education and medical being taken over by the dads, whereas the primary care and the actual and physical care of the children being left with the mom, so that the mom is now who knows what they are eating, because she has their best interest. He knows what they're not. When they're with the dad, they're just having pizza and chocolate.
Yes.
When they're the mom, there's some, So the mom will actually take care of that in terms of where they're sleeping and where they're, so that if anything, if anything comes to haunt, the two of you in the past, in the future, you'll always be coming back to this particular agreement. When parties enter into the agreement before like a court case, we refer it now through a miscellaneous application for adoption as a part of the court order.
Right.
So it becomes a judgment of the court, which can be enforced.
Right.
So that if somebody is not honoring, you'll actually tell the court, because of this judgment, remember now a document has been adopted as an order of the court.
Yes.
So I know sometimes people don't understand that bit of having this adopted as a court order. So it becomes now a court order. It's now removed from your hands. It's taken to the hands of the court for purposes of enforcement. So when there are changes in terms of maybe let me first even start with financial changes, that maybe the father had decided, I will be taking care of the education expenses.
Yeah.
And then something happens and the education and their the financial situation changes. They can come back and say, I had actually agreed to actually take this. Can I? Or we have actually even agreed with my partner. If they are understanding, they can actually maybe even split that cost. So the only way now we can change this is now what we have the variations or the addendums, because now they're coming in secondary to this agreement.
Right.
It's you can decide, we're not changing the entire agreement, we're just changing this small bit of the agreement.
Yeah.
If by the time you were separating, maybe somebody was going to rent,
Right.
And you are maybe used to having a bigger home and a big compound, and the other person has to go and stay in an apartment.
Yes.
So it's not, containing the kids in the apartment becomes very hectic. So somebody chooses, let me just have them for the weekend, because they don't have, they cannot come with the bikes to ride within the apartment setup. They don't have that life. But then somebody, their financial situation changes and they're able to even acquire a bigger home and a house. So in terms of the access, they can say, now because what we used to offer them previously is I can offer them in this other home, can we increase their access hours, and they can come over with everything, so they are feeling like they're just another home away from their normal home. So we have to keep on we have to be conscious of the changes that they are going through. If it's an issue of where they are schooling, somebody can change schools, and somebody, or rather, where they are living. You may be working for the government, and the government takes you to Mombasa, and so the question of who is going to have primary custody, are you going to be able to have the children when you're in Mombasa? So that changes their schooling system. That changes so many things.
Anthony, I'd like to ask you something in regard to that, because of the fact that there's somebody probably sitting and not wanting to put together a PRA because of how binding it is.
Oh yeah, it's very binding.
Now, when you're talking about it's possible to change, does it have to involve both parties to agree in order for that to be changed? Because I feel like those are some of the difficulties that I also didn't foresee, where you're trying to tweak something in the PRA, but the other party doesn't agree.
It does not want.
It's not agreeable, exactly. So then what happens then? And how can you be able to sort of avoid some of those situations when you're putting together just a good foundation when it comes to a PRA?
So the PRA, at the end of the PRA, even when we are adopting the PRA, we normally include a clause where we say that there's a liberty to apply, so that each party has liberty. And then this being an agreement between the two parties, there is the commercial nature of agreements. However, the commercial nature of agreements does not apply to children cases, because here we're looking at the best interest of kids. So the even consents, what we have consents now, we are adopting this agreement by consent. The consents in commercial cases, they cannot be set aside unless for very good reason. But consents in children cases, they can always be set aside. So if somebody is not cooperating in terms of following the PRA, there is what you've drafted, and you said, there's liberty to apply, but I can also apply to the court to have maybe a particular clause varied because of, and that variation, it's not because of your need, it has to also reflect on how will it affect the wishes of the children.
Children as well,
Let me touch on that issue for the best wishes of the children, because sometimes people get confused. That wishes of the children, in the best interest and the best wishes of the children, those two terms are usually confused.
Okay.
Best interest of the children is what is the best, for them. But sometimes we normally think that the children will dictate, what they want. And if it's the child's wish to stay with the dad, it's the child's wish to stay with the mother. So, and I remember in your situation, there's a time the court just said, we want to have a wish list.
Yes.
Was it a wish list?
Oh, it was a wish list. And they also even wanted to, my heart, they wanted to interview the kids as well.
To have the interview, the children interview. Gladly, we did not come to that.
Yes, we didn't.
But it is also what part of the strategy, because the court sometimes want to look at the mind of where these kids are. But the wish list, in terms of saying, what do we want, how do we want to raise our kids, and what do we want to put in the PRA? Before we adopt that, let the kids also have their take by putting a wish list. You are insisting on, we must transfer these children to this other school, but do the children want to be transferred? We must I must have 3 days or 4 days with them. But sometimes those wishes, in as much as yes, they will be taken into consideration, they are not binding upon a court, because sometimes what if the wish of the child is to have pizza all week? That's their wish.
It's still a wish.
It's still a wish. And then as you mentioned correctly, that these kids are still growing. So when they're in the teen, they will now start the manipulation games.
Teens?
Yes, even when they are young.
I don't think it's
they start
teens.
Doing the manipulation games.
They will start quite early, especially when they see that it works. So that's why it's very important to have, one, the conversations with them, two, a clear agreement. Because like drop-offs, pickups, all those things are clearly put. And then in the case, because I've had the case before where at one point they'd want to come back.
Earlier
than
the stay period granted to the other side.
I guess allow for that as well. But then just having the open conversations then stops from that aspect of manipulation.
Yes. Sometimes, they've gone and they want to come back earlier.
Right.
It's three things. First, communicate. Yeah, of course, no. The child may communicate to you, but even as the parent who has heard that, hey, I want to be, can I just go home? First communicate it. And then secondly, have the conversation with the child that sometimes it may have don't put it them that, what, I'm breaking the law. Now there's a judgment. Some of the implications that sometimes this decision may have, because the moment we start stepping out from the agreement, in as much as it's not supposed to be rigid, the moment we start stepping out, we must also be cautious to see that this document is supposed to be guiding us. How far will we go to mutilate it to the very end, so that the other person cannot also take advantage of the situation. So
assuming you get to the point of actually having a PRA.
Okay.
Yeah, because in some cases, I'm sure, Anthony, even getting a PRA put together has to be done by, it doesn't even get to
it does not even get there.
It doesn't even
Most
get there.
people want.
Yeah.
Most people want, but sometimes
How
the
does
motives,
it make your life easier? Getting
how
a
does it make
PRA done?
Yes, because in law, we normally say that a bad compromise is always better than a good judgment.
Right.
Yeah, because the judgment is at the hands of the person writing the judgment. But even if we sit here and we have the worst of compromises, it came from us.
Yeah.
So I will be able to live with what I said. This is what I can. This is what I'll live with.
Yeah.
As opposed to being something being imposed by the court.
Yeah.
So a PRA being a compromise that you're actually saying that, yes, I'm entitled to have these children all week, but I can live with 3 days or 3 days. Or I am, I can, I'm supposed to be, taking care of the educational expenses.
Yes.
And, to this extent, because you're the one who took it up, you will always be working towards that, as opposed to when it's coming from the court and the court is telling you, pay,
do this,
X amount of money,
do this.
pay to these schools, pay. So if you felt dissatisfied at that point, you always have to keep on appealing those decisions, as opposed to having the PRA whereby we just come back to the same court which understands us and tell the court that we want to adjust by 1 or 2 issues and put in maybe a variation or two to this. Sometimes it may even be a line. Yeah. But when it's coming from the court, at that judgment, we can only have it reviewed, appealed, and we have seen cases which have gone all the way to the to the court of appeal just because of somebody did not want to comply with 1 or 2 orders. But if we would have done through a PRA, and of course people listening will always be looking at it from the cost implication.
Yeah,
And
I was just going to ask
and given
that.
that this is a lifetime, remember whenever you bring a children's case, that child until they are 18, they are children.
Yeah.
Until, and we have even seen beyond 18 years, whereby people come to do for extension of parental responsibility. I mean, there are people who say, you're 18, sorry, you can take care of yourself. The law deems you as an adult. But so these people have to come back and say, you're still my parent. You have to take care of me through university. We have seen people who are still in their 30s who are still complaining that still have to be maintained by their parents. So they still have to keep calling for extension of that responsibility over them.
Yeah.
So the moment you bring in this document and you draw it when the child is 1 or 2, 3, 4 years, that document is not foreseeing 10 years to come, and that this child is actually growing. So it makes life easier. It's also good that we don't have to keep on going back to a court to pronounce itself over your issue. I mean, we live in adversarial systems, and that is our case. It's either a win or a loser. So I either won or lost, and if I won, that victory. So fine, you won or you got some orders in your favor, but whose victory is it? It's supposed
really
to be
the kids.
Is it the kids who won in that contest, or is it me who won to have?
I don't know, Anthony. We've had this conversation for me, like the number of times I've been asked, what do I want?
Yes.
And from the beginning, it's always been about the interest of the children. Where for me, it's like, I don't want this, I don't want this. I just want the kids to be able to be taken care of, to be present, to be this, to be that. And so for me, I've always had that view of, okay, maybe not always. Maybe not always. Because at the beginning, I wanted them to be constantly with me. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but eventually it became
you're about them. So sometimes you must think about the victories.
Right.
Of course, from a lawyer's perspective, is that yes, the court granted in your favor. But at the very, at the end of the day, we must look at who is having this victory.
Yes.
The victory has to be always be for the children. It has to be about the children.
About the children.
So in as much as yes, it's emotionally draining, in as much as yes, it might be resource draining, in as much as and I usually get sad whenever we are sitting in those courts, and I used to invite, you guys just come and first listen to the madness.
Yeah.
And I think somebody who wants to go through a custody battle or a custody story
should do that.
First come and listen.
Should
first
do
come
that.
and listen to what happens
Highly
in those
recommend.
corridors.
Yeah.
To just look at some of the drama that goes on there. It is not the best of. It is bad comedy. You may look at some things.
It really is.
And laugh
because
is. You're wondering, are people really going through these things? For you to just think about, do I really want to be in this particular forum? And can I resolve my matter in another way?
Yeah.
The whole issue of mediation, it actually stemmed from the family division, because they said a lot of these issues are supposed to be for people to actually have a sit down and talk about them. So we also promote a lot of, alternative dispute resolution.
Yes.
It has to be promoted in this particular division, that is the children's cases, so that we can also, as people talk and as people, open up, they're also going through therapy in itself, and they might calm down and maybe seize some of the demands.
Yeah.
For yours, for your case, and we kept on asking ourselves, what are we doing here? Because I think you had ceded a lot of ground just to see that if this has to come to an end by me ceding this, I'm not holding on to anything. If it's for the children, let me have it. But we have people who are holding on to some demands, and maybe I don't know if it helps people sleep at night sometimes. Yeah, but it should not.
Some demands are what feeding them. You understand? So in such cases, like you said, like the stay-at-home mom and whatnot, who probably doesn't have the means to be able to fund, thinks that they don't have the means, because I feel like you can always try and get yourself out there, but maybe is in a difficult situation at the time and just can't. So then they hold on to those demands because at the end of the day, they feel like it's their right for bearing these children.
Yes. And you're right to bring that up, because a majority of the times the setup and the arrangement has always been, when the children are young, you stop being active in terms of what you do. You take care of the kids. Let me be out there breadwinning.
Right.
And my fortunes are growing as I keep stepping out, whereas yours are still, just taking care of the children, and maybe your career, the growth is affected, and you're not out there, making deals or you're not hustling. So by the time you're getting back, and maybe by the time you're getting back to try and get out, and maybe this is when now it's happening. So also you're not very well financially, and that's why I normally say, let's not make agreements just because of the current situation
at that moment.
Because people pick themselves up, and this person that
Things
you're thinking,
change.
that you know what, I will have custody, of these kids, because you cannot take care of them, because even when you step out, you have no house, you have no income, you have no fortunes. Do change? It's just a question of time. And resentment gets old because of the time, the lapse in time.
I want to touch, because you've spoken about the children's therapy, which we had to take our kids through, which I think was absolutely fantastic. I want to ask, how important is that, especially when it comes to changing the PRA? Because I remember at some point ours needed some tweaking, but was requesting because of now the aspect of a new person coming into our lives. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes,
I'm sure you do.
Yes, I do.
Sure you do. But these are just some of the things that blended families go through. So please just touch on both of them.
Therapy is, we cannot underscore, or rather we cannot underestimate the importance of therapy. We have to keep on, especially because it's this sensitive issue. I mean, in commercial courts, we will not go to therapy to discuss money matters.
Yes.
Yeah, but in these matters which touch our social lives, we need to talk about and opening up rather than bottling things up. And people have different ways of dealing with situations. Somebody may be still in denial that they are no longer with the person. Remember, maybe depending on the amount of time you had actually stayed with this person, there are things that you are doing together. So maybe Friday evenings were supposed to be for this particular occasion.
Yes.
Sundays were supposed to be family Sundays for the kids and all. So when that day comes, this person has nothing to do. Fridays are never the same. The weekends are never the same. Maybe there was a Tuesday dinner time or date night. It is never the same. So people start dealing in their own different ways. rather than bottling the hard feelings of it, or the anger, or of everything. Let's have therapy both at an individual level and even at the kids level. And we have very trained children therapists,
Yes.
and who have studied psychology of these areas of why families are. Remember, marriage is, it's just like a piece of paper which are glued together. So when they're being separated, they tear, so there's all that, there are wounds which are still healing, they are not well covered, and they're still fresh. And that's why people are so angry at the beginning.
Yeah.
But now, as the wounds heal over time, people start seeing things from a sane perspective.
Yeah.
So therapy does help in healing those wounds, and it also helps the children to start preparing themselves for this change in their life, so that we, maybe if we were used to family Sundays, the Sunday will just be maybe with one parent,
Right.
or
Change,
if we were,
change is difficult.
Change is difficult to just accept, and they have to take time. So if they go on holiday, we are at the beach and they are not understanding this game I used to play with, so why is it not happening?
Yeah.
So to help them prepare and come to that realization, and to even ask them, what do you feel about it? Of course, they will say, we are sad. Why are you separating? Why could you not? It's hard telling them that, your issues. But it's good to help them prepare and help them to understand that we are not enemies. It's not a fight. We have to do this. But for the sake of you guys, we are together and we are being cordial about it. Bring in the element of the blended family. Now you have to introduce this other person into the picture. So again, that is a whole new ball game, and the introduction has to be very, it has to be very organic. It has to be seamless. It is not boom. Last week there's a court case, and then now all of a sudden you're having Sunday dinner or Sunday with this stranger.
Yeah.
So it must be, clearly discussed between you and your partner that, this is happening. Disclose that there's maybe a court case going on. Disclose that there is an agreement. Disclose all this. Disclose your responsibilities, because the new partner that now you're teaming up with needs to know this, and they need to know the extent of the burden that they're actually taking up. And are they ready for that? So and then now the kids now seeing a different figure.
Right.
Depending on how long you had stayed with your ex-partner, it will really influence on how the kids will actually take on this other person. So sometimes we see people do their best to just keep away and stay away until now these people are old enough to understand. And maybe sometimes we have some kids who ask, why you not dating? Why you not, if at all they're old enough to understand that.
Right.
But sometimes they just want to to lean back to what they're used to and what they know. So again, therapy comes into play, that I have a life, and I did not fall out with your dad because of one or two reasons. I fell out with your dad. We could not go together because of one or two reasons. However, I am finding love, and now that's about me. I don't know how you feel about it.
Right.
And now maybe they will, if that you start now gauging them. So it should not be an immediate, it's not shock therapy here, whereby boom, or cold turkey on them, we have immediately introduced this person. It has to be organic, over time. Maybe, so-and-so dropped me and they saw them in the parking lot, and okay, fine, that's my friend, conversations start building up and even get them to start getting used to this. But you have to keep on talking to them and asking them, how do you feel about this? And even get their take as far as that is concerned. Because somebody now may be getting angry at you. The children now may be getting angry at, why did you leave? Maybe if they're staying with their dad or of their mom, why did you leave dad and now you're taking on this other person? So they start now, you need to know their feelings. So when they start now hiding their feelings, start acting in a way. So all of a sudden they don't want to come back home. All of a sudden they don't want to And again, it also impacts
Anthony, that's a whole different topic, especially when it comes to the blending aspect of making sure that there's a bond between the co-parent, who's the bonus parent, and the child. There's a lot when it comes to that.
And there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done, of course, by either the mother or the father to help the children understand.
Yeah.
Remember, now even picture this, that the dad is moving on the other side and you're moving on this other side.
Yeah.
So there are two different individuals, again, now who have also come into this family. So a lot needs to be done to find out how they are feeling about it, because how they are feeling about it, if they are angry, are they happy, are they sad,
right,
to help them, cope with this process of co-parenting between the two of you. So there's a lot that needs to be done. We still underestimate, and I cannot blame anybody for not doing that, because again, therapy does not come cheap. When you sit in a session with a therapist and you have to part with X amount of money, and you're the same person who is being told to maybe do some maintenance, maybe run two households. Now you have to run your household, you have to run the other household, you have to pay maybe the driver to be picking up. So everybody's trying to save that extra coin. So it is left now for the privileged to actually now take their kids to therapy. But talk to them. Don't assume that they are understanding what is going on, and
just
say, what is about me.
Difficult conversations. Yeah. Anthony, we must have you back here, because I feel like there's still so much that we need to discuss, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions that people probably would like to ask you. But for now, I'm feeling like we probably just need to cap it there, because now we're going to really, really venture into I'd love to hear the legal strategies, even give my story and how you went about that. Some of the things that you needed to deal with and the questions that you need to have. Maybe you can ask me one if you have one now.
All right.
Yeah? Because you wanted to ask me a question.
Oh yeah. So these are some of the things that we want to remember. And advocates who practice family law, they have to keep on dealing with these things, and especially if you have. If you are newly married, or if you're a new parent, or if you're a new father or new mother, and you're living your intact family, and your mind has to shift, into I'm going into divorce court.
Right.
I am going into, matrimonial property court. Is it there's the realization that this does happen to people, and sometimes it starts happening to the people who are very close to you. That these are no longer stories that we are reading either on the news or we are reading as case law. You're actually using examples of your close friends and relatives as examples. So, and I remember this one time, during the meeting, that the first ever meeting that we ever had with you and your parents, and we were discussing this. And I was going home, and I was talking to my wife, and I was just, of course, she has to ask me, how did your meeting go? And I say, what? Yeah, the meeting went well. But it's a sad situation, and so we have to start breaking it down. And everybody has to keep on asking you, what's your stand on it? And I say, no, that's the job.
Exactly.
But sometimes I keep telling, I was telling you from the beginning, some of these clients are you start now working with them a journey. Remember, if you've been taking on a children's matter, it's until they become until they become 18. So
18.
you have this file, you know about their lives, you know about what they are going through, you know about their schooling, you know about everything else about. So they become another part of you. So you start even taking up. Sometimes you're even sad that you cannot even bill.
I know. Oh, Anthony, bless your soul. But please pay him, guys, when you start using him. I'm telling you, he's the best.
There was a lot of difficulty when it came to that. And I remember, you're the client, but did we ever discuss fees with you?
No. It's the worst.
You're the client, but we never had that discussion with you, because I felt that those are not matters I could not bring to you. And I remember I kept on joking with Barak. And I was asking Barak, you know what? Yes, I have updated the client, but the client.
Ain't doing it. Tell her.
No, you as the client. You're the client. You have to take care of some of these bills. And sometimes, it goes beyond. And sometimes the family division, I remember my former boss telling me that, if you're thinking or the figure that you want to bill your client, bill it double there. the figure that came to mind, then now double that amount, because the extra amount that you're billing is not even for the legal work. It is for the emotional advice, it's for the therapy, it is for the time. I mean,
the number of documents you wrote, Anthony, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. We must give credit to, Barak. Yeah, Barak had spent sleepless nights
coming
up with all those and going through each and every document. Yes, and that's where the support system was coming in.
Yeah,
you had
a team that
support. You had a team that was really supporting you. So, even your previous advocate, even, doing, taking it to where it was.
Yeah.
But now the question that kept on lingering in my mind is how it gets to that point. And, those are sometimes not matters that we can ask. Because it's not your priority.
But Anthony, let me tell you. Based on all those affidavits that were sent
so I read them.
Like you read those that was 200 pages.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Paragraphs, the 200 something paragraph affidavit. And I think that's why even the court got tired and say, I cannot go through all this. Because it's also emotionally draining, even for the person reading them. It's also for the person who is reading each and every detail. And some of these documents contain the nasty messages that had been exchanged either through emails or through WhatsApp.
It gets ugly.
Yeah.
And
don't forget that these are court documents, and sometimes these registry people, they will read them and then they'll take a screenshot of that and they'll start circulating. So a lot of your private life is out there. So we really try as much as possible to contain some of this.
Yeah, after my documents were expunged. But anyways, that's a topic for another day. I think it gets there from just one party being unwilling to work at it anymore. And for me, I think I was that party. Who was just absolutely unwilling. Now, the details, you have the details, sir. You have the details, and there was a lot that was happening that I wasn't willing to put up with for the rest of my life. Yeah. And so in my case, that's how it got there. There's so many other people that I had a lady on this previous episode, and she said for her it hit her one day like a punch, and she was, it was Mama Lydia. She was just saying it was just a punch, and I knew I'm done. Right? But it's so many different things. Communication becomes worse. It piles up. Affection is shown in different ways. There's no room for growth and change and the conversations of these growth and changes, because people do grow and people do evolve and you need to evolve and grow with your person. But if you're not doing that and you're not having conversations about it, then eventually things just fall apart. There's lots of different things.
By the time it's coming to a point of no return. It has to come to that.
Point of no return though is hard to deal with. Especially when there are kids involved.
Yes.
Yeah, especially when they're killed. So I'm like, you were done. When you see a woman walking away with her children, they are done. They are done.
Because the reason as to why I'm asking that is the last of the cases that I dealt with, it was a divorce case, and one of the parties was saying there's a lot of room, for reconciliation and there's a lot of pressure from outside parties for us to separate. But the other guy is saying, my client, when I sit with him, he's telling me, Anthony, I am just done. I cannot do that anymore. And then we have to present now each party's positions before a court and for the court to determine. You see, again, courts are not made to mend relationships or fix broken relationships.
But what was he done with? He was done with trying.
Yeah, he was done with trying. Of course, and it's part of that was part of the difficulties that we were facing during the trial in terms of what are you? And of course, the answer which came across was, I just grew tired, of not trying, as you're saying. So we had a difficult time. Luckily, there were no children who were involved in that one.
Right.
So it was not as complicated as the others would be. But we have had extremes, and the reason as to why I wanted maybe to ask you, because you have 2 kids. I also had another client who, when they were trying to sort things out, another child came through during the process of trying to fix things. So
It's so funny
it
because you know my story. But we shall not talk about it
Oh
here.
yeah. So another child came along the way, and they were the most interesting in that at that particular point in time, they knew they were done with each other, and it was again a nasty. But again, do you look at what your decision, has contributed to?
Exactly.
So again, another person has to be brought up in this
environment
where the two of you are no longer together, and of course there is the discomfort between the parties. I mean, I'm looking forward to the day when we go to court.
Yes.
It's only the advocates who greet each other and they say hi to each other, but the parties will be one on the other side, the other one will be on this other side.
I used to try.
You used to try.
And then I was ignored all the time. So then I stopped. What was the point?
Yes, you used to try.
Yeah.
We just want to like, hi, hello, greetings, how are you?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so that we know that the business we are here, we've been unable to agree on one or two issues to do with the children, not between us, but to do with the children, because between us, it's done.
Yes.
But for the children, we were unable to agree. Let's just see what maybe a third party can come up with, or if they can strike a balance.
Yeah.
I mean, those are very ideal situations that we normally hope and pray for.
Hope and wish.
Yes, we
Hopeful
hope and
thinking. Anthony, I'm telling you, we have to wrap it up, but I have to have you back on this show because I feel like there's so much more that we need to talk about.
Okay.
This is not it. You guys, please get used to seeing Anthony, because if you have any questions, please let us know. In fact, this week is going to be anything to do with divorce and custody matters. If you've got any questions that you'd like answered, what we're going to do is we're going to either send you to Anthony and have him as your lawyer.
We will not promote people separating, but if
custody cases,
custody cases. Yeah, there are people, and it's very painful.
Look at you saying. Do you know how much of that is unfortunately happening in this country?
Oh yeah, it is very sad.
It's sad.
There's a time, I think one of the magistrates we were with and said, you know what, hey, this is becoming a very lucrative industry for you lawyers. And you were like, oh, it is not lucrative because
it's sad.
It's not the joy of a lawyer to see somebody come in and say, and this is something that one of my former neighbors told me, that it is very lonely. When you compare it with the day that you are getting married, the pomp, color, and everybody is involved in that process. I mean, you have the entire celebration, and you compare it with the day you're being granted that paper. I mean, the question is, it's done. That's what normally everybody asks.
Yeah.
So it's done, and they take the piece of paper, they just take the judgment, they just walk away. So it's a very, very lonely place to be in. Yeah. I mean, even nobody, if when we get proper judgments, we normally come and you tell the client and we go to celebrate. I mean, there are people who also celebrate the end of the journey because of the way they are side, but a majority of them is just, what, it's done. Somebody's just alone. We walk away our different roads
directions,
and we go back
and that's
home.
that.
So that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And to look at it from we cannot monetize the fact that all these things are, because the social issue that is happening.
It is.
So a lot needs to be done to try and maybe fix it. But even more so for the sake of the kids who are growing up in these environments.
Yeah, it's really difficult, which is just again another whole topic.
I
honestly,
think
Anthony,
each and every quarter, or rather each and every 5 years, there has to be an amendment to our either the Children's Act, and especially like the previous amendment that was done, just to say that to bring in the whole question of equality in terms of how we are looking at we are raising our kids. So it is a very present issue, and sometimes it's very tiring, even for both the lawyer,
the child, and the client.
And the client as well.
Let me tell you, Anthony, we're trying to build a community that we can be able to discuss a lot more of these issues. And thank you so much for your time and just taking time to be here and to share your experience with me as a client as well. And just your experience as a whole. All right, Anthony, we shall definitely have you again. That's it for today. Anthony, please say goodbye to our lovely viewers. And of course, please stay tuned to just more of the topics that we'll be having around blended families. We're taking a journey, which was my journey down through, and then just bringing people along. So thank you so much, Anthony.
You're welcome anytime. And goodbye, viewers. I hope to see you again. And perhaps answer one or two or three or many questions that maybe people will have about this particular topic. I can call it an emerging issue or the whole, blended family agenda. But let's talk about what people are going through during these particular processes and how people are moving on and how we're introducing also our kids to our new partners. So hope to see you.
We will have way more conversations. And of course, we will link the email or contact details to their office in case you need to reach out for legal advice. Trust me, you will not regret it.
Thank you so much,
That's it for
Claire.
today. You're most welcome. That's it for today here on the Blended Family Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, keep those questions and suggestions coming through. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. So much. I don't think you guys even know it. There you go. From Dara's Tango, there is your gift.
Thank you so much. All right. I will pass it on to the intended beneficiary.
And that's also just to say thank you for your time.
You're most welcome. No, I think, you guys are family.
Yeah.
I think there's a day we were just talking with you and they told you, I'm just from having a conversation with your mom.